Hi, everybody in 1st through 4th grade. Happy Wednesday. And today, October 14th, we are going to be talking about spreadsheets. Super exciting stuff. Things that I love to talk about, and things that I think you'll actually find are interesting, maybe a little bit fun in certain ways. And we're going to be starting off by comparing a few things just very quickly by you taking a look at something on my screen. First of all, I'm in a spreadsheet program right now. When we talk about apps or programs, right, they're really the same thing. We have a variety of apps or programs that do very, very similar things. So, when we're starting this year off talking about Google Docs, which we just did last week, and then this week, Google Sheets, it kind of comes in a group of three things, and they're put out by a couple of really, really big major companies, right? So, first, if we're talking about Google, we have this icon for Google Docs, which we have used, and that would be used for making a flyer, typing a report, typing a letter, writing out a paragraph, making a sign for something, right? Something that you would want to make a document for. Today, we're going to be talking about Google Sheets, and that is this icon right here. And Google Sheets is spreadsheet software, software which you see right now because I made this in Google Sheets, and that you'll get to know a little bit more today. And then finally, in another couple of weeks, we're going to be looking at Google Slides. And that is a software that you can use for a presentation, a slideshow, giving a lot of pictures or information in a way to present to someone, right? Making presentations. And so Google puts out those three. What some people might be used to, and this is especially like people, maybe your parents or grandparents' age, is that for a long time, the programs that most people used for those main things would be Microsoft products, and that would be Word to do documents, just like Google Docs does, Excel to do spreadsheets, just like Google Sheets does, and PowerPoint to do presentations or slideshows, just like Google Slides does. So if you think of these three apps that we're looking at the beginning of this year, they really relate to apps that you may have on another computer or that mom and dad or someone may be familiar with already and have seen for a long time, because these are very, very common, popular programs or applications that people have used for years. And then one other comparison I'll make is that Apple also puts out their version. So we have the version by Google, the version by Microsoft, and we're talking about some of the biggest technology companies in the world. Apple has their own versions. I'll be honest, they are not used as much by as big a number of people as the others, but they do put out pages, they put out numbers, and they put out Keynote for absolutely free if you use any Apple products like an iPad, an iPhone, or a MacBook, an iMac. Those are the three of those variety of products from Apple, one for documents, one for spreadsheets, and one for presentations that are absolutely free. So that was a little bit of background about those products. Now, today we're specifically looking at specifically Google Sheets. And for some of you guys, you're first graders learning about spreadsheets. I don't think I had even seen or touched or used a spreadsheet until I went to college. And now today we have some first graders, second graders, third graders, and fourth graders taking a look at spreadsheets. Well, let me tell you something. Spreadsheets can be extremely complicated. They can be extremely hard to work with sometimes, but they can also be really simple and a lot of fun if you start learning about them early in elementary school, and we can do that in a fun way today. Before we get to something that you're going to do, we're going to take a look at this page to just say a couple of terms that are really, really important that everybody needs to know and needs to be able to say easily if they're working at spreadsheets. First of all, this whole thing that we see right here with all of the lines, right, in kind of a grid, that is the spreadsheet. Then we have our toolbars and our menu bar up at the top. And when we look at this, this can go on for really hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these individual little boxes, even into thousands and thousands of them. So we need a pretty simple way to identify different spots or different things that we're talking about. And the first thing to know is that rows just like rows in a movie theater or another type of theater, they go across from left to right. Right? So if I click right here, I just highlighted a row and think to yourself, what row is that? It is row 4. I just highlighted row 4, right? All right, so let's think of this image with the rows, right? Like the rows in the movie theater because they're going across left to right. And what does this take up? Well, this takes up row 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. So this picture takes up rows 5 to 13. The first row at the top is obviously 1. We see up to row 25 right now, but we could keep going down, 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 and it goes a very far way down to thousands and thousands of rows that some spreadsheets could use, but not really any ones that we're going to use. Then, up and down, we have columns, right? Columns go up and down. So if I selected right here, this would be column, what? Think about it. See if you know what column is it? E, right? So I just selected column E. This picture showing the columns and how they go up and down, this takes up column F, G, and H, right? So those would be columns. And if we combine those two things together, a number for a row and a letter for a column, we can identify any one of these boxes in the entire spreadsheet. Now, these boxes also have a name. You may have guessed it because it's on my page right now, but each one of these boxes by themselves or in a group are called cells or an individual cell. So if I put my mouse right here and click, I just highlighted cell K21, right? And I can see it even shadowed or grayed that K and shadowed and grayed that 21 to make it easy for me to identify, because sometimes when you're going across far and your eyes can play tricks on you going across the lines, but that shading over in the numbers for the rows or letters for the columns can help you out. So if I put my mouse right here, that's cell A1. If I put my mouse right here, that's D1. If I put my mouse right here, that's D24. And this icon that says cell in it, it takes up about everything from C, we'll call this C16 down to D23, because you can have groups of cells selected at a time. Right now I selected G21 all the way down to I24. All right, and it's kind of like, and you might have seen this icon peeking out already, but if you've ever heard of or played the game Battleship, right? And in the game Battleship, you're trying to guess where somebody else's battleships are by using coordinates just in the same way. So for this battleship, for somebody to sink it, they would have to say something like E18. E19, E20, E21, and you sank my battleship, right? If you've ever heard of that game, and that helps it to make a little bit more sense. So, now, let's think of what we're doing today. We are going to start with a blank spreadsheet, and we are going to just do a little bit of practice using spreadsheets. So, I'm going to go to Google Sheets, and you guys can try to get there too. Use your app browser once you're signed into Google or signed into a Chromebook, and find that icon for Sheets. It will always be there in the app browser, and it has kind of a universal color of green, which even matches up with Microsoft's coloring of the apps as well, and how they color their app Excel green. So we want a blank Google Sheet, so click on Sheets, and we are going to click at the top where it says blank right here. And we have a blank spreadsheet in front of us. Now, for some of us, this is the very first time we're ever going to be doing this. For some of you, you may have done it with me or on your own just a little bit before. We are going to do something really simple today to get used to working with spreadsheets. So the first thing we're going to do is give it a title, just like we have titled things before, like in a Google Doc, we've changed the title. And we are going to title this Scavenger Hunt. All right, we gave it a title, and we're going to use Google Sheets to make a scavenger hunt that you could play at home. Because Google Sheets really has a job, like how Google Docs had a job of making us a document, of making us a page, of making us a flyer, of making us a poster sometimes, or an invitation, or a report. Google Sheets' job is to record data and store data and information and sometimes work with that data. So, the first thing we're going to do at the top is we're going to make a nice title. So we're going to click somewhere in about the center of the section that we could see, right? In the first row. So I'm going to say that should be about cell D1. And I'm going to click right here in D1. And I'm going to type in at home scavenger hunt. And you can type in the same thing. You could change it around a little bit if you like. If you want to type in Charlie's scavenger hunt. You want to type in Jacob's at home scavenger hunt. You want to type in Gianna's super awesome, amazing, extraordinary at home scavenger hunt of 2020. Right? Something that makes sense, though, to give it a nice title. And since we gave it a nice title at the top, we usually want our titles to stand out, our titles to be a little bit more interesting. So let's use some of those text tools that we've looked at before, and let's change around just a little bit the font, the color, and the size of that title, at home scavenger hunt. So I'm going to look up in my toolbar here and I'm going to find those font tools, and here they are. First, it's telling me that I'm using the default font Arial. I want to find something a little more interesting, so I have a bunch of fonts right here. We talked in the past with Google Docs about how to go and get more fonts. If you would like, you can take time to. Also, I mentioned this in the directions for today, but you guys can pause this at any point. Maybe this would be a good point to pause right now, or you can pause it at any point you'd like. The good thing about these pre-recorded videos is you can pause, you could go get a drink, you could go use the bathroom, you could go and go outside for a little while, you could pause and do some steps, and you can come back to it. So if you want to pause right here, go ahead, but I am going to pick the font that I like best, and I'm going to use kind of a silly, fun one for this called Font Diner Swanky. That's a heck of a font name. Font Diner Swanky. All right, now, after I did that, I want to make this title a little bit bigger. So let me put it up to about an 18. And I want to give it some color. So let me click over here and I'm going to make this, any old color. It's October, and for Halloween time I'm going to give it some orange for my at-home scavenger hunt. And that's the start right there. Now, we're going to use a combination of these cells, right, in different rows and different columns to type in some information. So first, let's take columns B and C to start off putting in our players. I think that everybody should be able to get 2 players. There is going to be some time or space in this lesson where you can customize things, where you can have more, and let me show you what I mean. First, in column B, row 3, let's type your name. I'm just going to type your name at first. That's where you would type your name. But you're going to type your name, David, or Jaden, or Caleb, or Lexi, whatever your name is, you type there. So I'm going to go back now and change that to Mr. H. And then try to find one other person who is at your house. Now, maybe that's a mom or dad. Maybe it's a grandmom, grandpa. Maybe it's a brother, sister. Maybe it is anyone else who happens to be at your home working with you, somebody, even a friend that might come over. And let's type in their name there. And I'm just going to use player 2. Now, you would want to type in their name, right? Type that in. And then here's where you could leave it at just 2 people. So you have one in B3, one in C3. But if you have any other people who want to play, let's say mom and dad both want to play. Let's say 2 brother or sister want to play. Let's say a brother and a mom wants to play. Whatever the combination is, put your players' names right here in this row 3, filling in D3, then E3 if you have another, then F3 if you have another. So everybody's might wind up looking a little bit different, and that's okay. But I'm just going to make it so that you should have 2, because everybody should be able to have themselves and one other person. Now, we're going to go and type some things in column A going down, but this is where you really have to look carefully, because we're going to start with A4. I don't want to start with A3, because if you see what I'm going to start putting in here in a minute, it might give us a little problem if I start an A3, because then when I record my data, I record my numbers, it will make it so that I can't type my numbers where I need them to be. So I want to make sure that I start in A4, column A, row 4, right? And let's think of some things that you could find for a scavenger hunt at home. Well, first let's start with easy ones that every single person watching this and doing this should have. Let's start with doors, and that's an A4. I'm going to go down, and I pressed my arrow key to go down. You can decide what you like better. Sometimes you could click, sometimes you could use your arrow keys to move up, down, left, and right. And in A5, I'm going to type lights. Doors and lights. Now, those are two that definitely everybody should be able to get. They're not the most interesting, though. How about if for number 6 we add in one that's maybe a little more interesting, and let's put in animals. All right, and then go to A7, and this is the last one we're going to put together. And for A7, let's type in pencils in A7. Okay, so we just put in 4 things for the scavenger hunt that we all put in, that you all should have, that makes sense for pretty much anybody to be able to find at home, whether it be inside, outside in your yard, somewhere. So here's what you want to do to finish this up. I'm going to leave room, because really, if you want to, and you want to try this, and you want to try to make it something fun, you could add in more things. So thinking about things that you would find around your house, you could be creative. Maybe it could be family pictures. Maybe it could be cups. Maybe it could be a certain type of toy that you have. Maybe it could be a certain type of game. Maybe it could be something around your house right now for Halloween, like if you have decorations of pumpkins. I know if we did a scavenger hunt at my house and counted the number of pumpkin statues and pictures and things, people could probably find 20 or 30 of them. So, what you want to do is take whatever other things you want to add. And I would say don't do any more than about 10 of them. We started with 4 altogether. I would say keep it to about 10. But it's up to you. You have a little bit of free choice. And type those in, 1 on each row. Then, when you get to your last one, go down to the row right below that, right? So let's say your last one ended on 14, you would go down to 15, that's cell A15, and type in final score. Now, if you just left it with the 4 that I had and you only did those 4, then maybe you're typing this in A8, and that's fine. Type in final score. And so that's how your at-home scavenger hunt or your spreadsheet should be set up. And then here's what you do. You go ahead and play. And let's say for me, I'm just going to do it from where I'm sitting right now, and I can spot 3, if I really get creative because there's cabinets, I can spot 9 doors right from where I'm sitting right now. For lights, I can spot 12 lights from where I'm sitting right now. Animals, well, I can really only spot 1. And that's 1 animal, and that happens to be an animal who's a human, who's me, because I'm the only animal I see right now. Pencils, I'm looking around and I see 3, and so then I get to my final score. Now, here's where, if you're in 1st or 2nd grade, maybe even 3rd grade, you would really need somebody to help you with this part, because this gets into how spreadsheets are amazing, but a little bit tricky and complicated too. If you want to try to follow my directions here, this is an optional part, because what you could do is you could add. And I could say 9 plus 12 plus 1 plus 3 equals 25. So my score is 25. And then go and do that for player 2. But Google Sheets or Excel or a spreadsheet does something amazing in that you can type in what are called functions or formulas, sometimes people call them, so that it will do the math for you. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now. All right, for my example, here's exactly what I would type in. I would type in to this cell B8 where I want my total score right here. And fourth graders, I think, should be able to try this on their own. Third graders, it's a little iffy. Give it a try. You might get some help. If you have somebody to help you at home, that would be great. And if you can't get this, you're not in trouble. It's not a bad thing. It's not a problem. Don't worry about it. Ready? So in this cell, I'm going to type in a function or a formula. I'm not just going to type in 25 because I added this up and it equals 25. I'm going to type in equals sum, and then I need my parentheses open, which is shift 9, and I'm going to type in B4 colon B7. Parentheses closed, which is shift 0. Now let's look at what that means. That means it wants this cell to give us the total of what it equals when I go from B4 right here to B7 right here. And I have to type it pretty exactly like that. Now, there are a couple different ways to put in functions and formulas, and I'm actually going to show you another one or two. But you have to type it very precisely. You can't give it extra spaces. You can't spell things wrong. You can't forget parentheses or this colon that I put in right there, or else your function or formula may not work. But let's say you got it perfect. Let's say you have somebody there helping you and you're going to thank them for doing such a wonderful job. All you do then at the end is press your enter or return key and it will do the math for you. But it's not just going to do the math one time. What it's actually going to do is say, wait a minute, I just saw a squirrel outside. I just saw a squirrel. So now I didn't see one animal, I saw two animals. So watch what I do here. When I change this 2, so I change it from a 1 to a 2, watch what happens to this 25. Think in your mind right now, what should happen to that 25 if I add one more? Well, I'll put 2 here, and my 25 changes to 26, all by itself. Pencils, oh my goodness, I looked on the ground and I just saw another. So I'm going to type in 4 for the pencils. And now, one little detail is that you don't see it change right away, right? It's 26 at the moment, but once you click off of that cell or use your arrow keys and go off of that cell, it's going to total every single time. Let's put in something for player 2. I'm just going to make up some numbers real quick. Let's say player 2 only found 3 doors. Let's say they found 10 lights. They found 5 animals, or at least they said they did, and 2 pencils. So I don't have any function or formula here where I went in column C and put in the data or the numbers for player 2. I'm going to add my function or formula, but I'm going to make one little change to the way here I typed it in. I typed every one of those things to make it work. Here I'm going to make one little change, right? And it's to start off the same way and type in equals sum, that parentheses open, which is shift 9. But then instead of worrying about typing in which cells I want this to go to, I'm going to go and look at my first one, which is C4 right here. Look at my last one, which is C7, and click and drag. I don't want to start in the middle. I could start at the end or I could start at the beginning, the top or bottom right here. But I'm going to click and hold my button down, drag so I select all of those cells that I want added, let go, type in my parentheses closed, shift 0, enter or return, and that's a second way that you can go about putting in that function or formula, right? And then last but not least, and we can experiment here if you want to change the numbers around, see if it does the math correctly. It will, I promise, if you did that correctly with your function or formula. And boys and girls, if you didn't, if you made a mistake, if something didn't work, you could just backspace or erase it and start over. You could use your undo keys right here and you could change it and start over. But let's say you're in a household where you have a little brother, a big sister, or some other combination, or somebody gets home from work and you ask them and you say, hey, do you want to try this out too? And they say, sure. And you want to add another player. We're going to look at one last way to add in that function or formula right now. And let's say this is mom. Mom comes home from work. So I'm just going to type mom. And mom goes through and she does the scavenger hunt and she types in, oh yeah, or you record what she says. She says she found 6 doors, she found 14 lights, she found 3 animals, and she found 6 pencils because she dug through the couch and she found all those pencils that you have in there from when you've been doing school at home. And she found them all. And now you need to have it do the math for her. Well, look at this because this is awesome. This is amazing. If you know how this works, it can save so much time and effort. I want a formula in this cell right here, D8, but it's really doing the same thing that I already did in my C column, already did in my B column. It's just doing it in this column. It's not doing the math any differently. It's just doing it for that column. So if you're working in Sheets or if you're working in Excel, it has something built in to make that so simple and such a time saver. Watch what I do. I click back on my previous formula here for this column for player 2, column C. I clicked on my cell with the formula, and do you see how there's this little box in the corner? I have to be really, really precise and get my mouse right on it, click that box in the corner, hold it down, drag it over underneath of my player 3 or mom's totals in column D here. And when I let go, it's going to put that formula in there all by itself. I didn't have to do a thing. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to tell it what I wanted because it automatically knew, because I'm just repeating the same pattern that I did before where I say, yes, I want to take these numbers, add them together here, and because that's the same exact thing I did in this column, it knew what to do and it put in that formula for me just by dragging in the way that I did. So that is the main part of everything I want you guys to learn about using spreadsheets for now in Google Sheets. As one final thing, if you want to make this just a little bit extra cool, as one final thing, you could even put an image or icon in here if you want, the same way that we did to Google before. Let's say we want to insert an image here to make it so that it's not just a plain boring page. We want to go to the Insert button on the menu bar. We want to go down to Image. We want to do Image over Cells. Trust me on this one. We want to do Image over Cells. There is a new feature that's called Image in Cells. It does something different. We could take a look at it another time, but we want to do Image over Cells. And here, just like we did in the tutorial in Google Docs, we can do a Google image search. Let's do scavenger hunt. See if it comes up with anything. And look at that, couple cool icons. Or maybe instead of typing in that, you could type in magnifying glass. You could type in treasure hunt. Right? Something that makes sense, something that you might like. And if I like this treasure hunt map right here, I could go ahead and insert it, right? An image that you like. That image will pop up and I could click on it, resize it a little bit. Things like we learned by doing our work in Google Docs. So that's the final step that we're going to do for this Google Sheet this week. Next week, we are going to try a part 2 where we learn something even cooler to do, to make something in Google Sheets that will be really, really awesome and you can even try out and use. But for today, this is all that we're going to do. It'll save automatically. You can go and use this if you want to actually do the scavenger hunt, to actually have it be something fun if you would like, and if that takes the rest of the day, tonight, even until tomorrow, it's no problem. However, when you are finished, I would really, really appreciate if you went to Google Classroom and take a look on the classwork tab, and there's a posting for today that says for October 14th, attach Google Sheet to this post. So in the same way that we learned to attach a Google Doc to an assignment last week, if you guys could try, attach that Google Sheet that you made for the scavenger hunt onto that post, I would really, really appreciate it to see that you guys understood, that you were able to follow along, that you were able to do it. And as usual, if there is anybody helping you out today who gave you a hand and helped you out, definitely give them a big thank you, big hug, and I will see you guys next week.